Happening, buddy? You're the only person watching. Oh, Colleen's on. Colleen, I'm just waiting for Adam. There he is. Big fan of the show. Good. First time, long time listener, first time caller, Josh.
What's up, man?
Hey, Adam, how's it going?
Good. I think I had to go off Wi-Fi because I think everybody in Oakville's on tonight just to probably watch you and I. So
Probably. Or either that
here
or
I
have,
am.
those wine parties that people are talking about.
This is why having unlimited data is so nice.
Hold on. So you're on Wi. That's why you're like pixelated.
Oh no, I'm clear now. Is that better?
Mm,
Back on
so.
Wi-Fi.
Okay. Yeah, it's a bit better. It was getting a little weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have to tell you, this is my first ever Instagram live. So
Yeah.
I made my old assistant at York, who's tuned in, Elena. She's like the Instagram queen. So she was actually really impressed when I first put that I was going to be on Instagram Live on my Insta story. I don't think she knew that I knew how to use that, but here I am, ready to go.
Yeah, as of a week ago, I had never been on it either, and I didn't even really know that it was a thing. Like, I just kind of, every once in a while, people would be on it, just kind of talking, and I would sort of be like, hey, what's this person doing? And then I just thought it was a good way to connect with you guys, and, we can be face to face, we can be sort of, socializing during this time of social distancing. So I thought it was a perfect way to connect.
No, it's a great idea. I like to see that a lot of people are doing that. This explosion of video conferencing, Zoom chats. I really hope it's something that stays once
Yeah.
this craziness runs out. Because I think it's great. Like, people are finally opening the doors and sharing. That's something I think as strength coaches and sport professionals, not everybody's been super open about what they do, which, as you know, as you and I have worked together at Hockey Canada, I always think that's crazy. I think the more sharing you can do, the better. But I just feel like there you go. Nice job.
I switched it up.
Olympic
Yeah.
jersey, too.
Yeah, that was courtesy of Blair Turnbull and Jill Saunier. They sent it from Korea last year.
Amazing.
Yeah, or 2 years ago, I guess now. I figured I
Yeah.
would switch up the home decor after I had the Flames jersey up for Selby last night.
Yeah.
Yeah, mix it up.
No, it's great.
Knowing my audience.
That's right. That's it. Know your audience. Work with your audience.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I've got a rapid fire section for you really quick.
Fire away.
Number
Literally.
one, what are you drinking?
I actually got one of the ones from the back of the fridge. So this is Cameron's Brewing, which is an Oakville brewery. So this is Amber, which is a red ale, because I usually grab the Bud Lights, but I figured I needed to up my game because I know you are a pretty fancy beer drinker.
Yeah, tonight I'm drinking Bubbly, the cherry version.
Oh, do you have to take a night off or what?
Just kidding. I actually have the Garrison IPA again.
Yeah, I
Keep
knew
it
I didn't
going.
believe you.
Yeah, no, that was a joke. It was actually a prop there just for fun. Okay, number two, what are you guys, or you and your wife, because sometimes it's a little different, binge watching on Netflix right now?
Ooh, I'm just finishing Tiger King.
Yeah, that's
Ozark season 3 dropped today, which we'll probably watch over the weekend. But during this time, my kids and I have started reading Harry Potter. So we started the first book, and they are absolutely loving it. So my wife and I are going to borrow the movies from a friend of hers to see just how kid-friendly they are. So I'm sure her and I will watch all 7 or 8 or however many Harry Potter movies there were. But honestly, my kids love it. They love it. We read we just do a chapter or 2 a day, and they're all over it.
We did the same thing with the How to Train Your Dragons books,
Okay.
sorry, the series, and just kind of read those slowly, although they're a little bit like, there's some Viking language in there, I guess would be one way to put it. So you have to kind of censor as you go if your kids are young. but it's still it's a lot of fun, and it's a cool way to get kids into chapter books and get them to kind of follow along the stories and try to stick with it.
Oh, the retention and comprehension, even my youngest can do, because my wife kind of floats in and out, so they'll tell her about the story after, and they nail it. Like, it's amazing. It's pretty awesome to see.
Nice. Okay, next rapid fire question is, what does your home workout schedule look like these days for yourself?
It is actually less than when all this started. I work from home, so I was on a fairly good routine where I have a lot of time where the house is my own and I can kind of structure my day. But now that the kids and my wife are home, it's kind of cut into my workout period. Plus, I really tried to use that time to get out of the house as somebody that worked from home. So I heard Selby say this last night, but I also took up boxing. Nice. And I try to go to boxing classes 3 times a week. But obviously that place is closed, so I can't do that. So, I've got dumbbells, like I've got a set of power blocks, I've got bands, stuff like that. But it's consistently inconsistent when I do it. But we take our kids out twice a day, so we're playing basketball and running around with them for like a half hour today to an hour. So, it's more active lifestyle right now, but I do smoke the guns every once in a while I'm sitting at my desk.
Nice. Last rapid fire question. What was for dinner tonight and who cooked?
Oh, it was a team effort. My wife started and I finished, but we cooked oven baked chicken fingers, sweet potato, and broccoli. My kids love broccoli, as I told you earlier. My kids love broccoli. It's their favorite vegetable. And, easy to throw together with some, chicken, homemade chicken fingers in the oven. So
perfect. We did, well, actually, my wife did this. I didn't really do anything this time because I was tending to a little campfire that we had going on outside. But she made chicken parmesan with some spaghetti noodles, which was awesome, and the kids loved it. They devoured it, so that was perfect. Bodie, especially, the little guy.
I have sampled Kimmy's home cooking, and it was delicious when I was there. So I know you guys well.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good segue into a question that I might have asked at some point. Was, so you visited Halifax, the beautiful province of Nova Scotia, and specifically my house.
Yeah.
Can you tell people a little bit about your experience here?
I think I was, I think there's this like subculture of people that probably do exactly what I do, which is vacation and go towards natural disasters as they're coming. It's kind of like that Twister movie. I went out to Halifax for the weekend just as Hurricane Dorian was coming through. We had our Hockey Canada national women's team camp out there, so I was coming out kind of a few days before that started just to get everything set up. And it just so happened that the hurricane was coming, and my wife, like a day before I left, was like, "Are you still going?" And I was like, "Yeah, like why not? If I'm going to be at a friend's house, I can weather the storm with him." And kind of like fluffed it off a little bit too, thinking like, "Oh, like it probably won't be as bad as it was." And sure enough, flew in, no problem. Went to work with you, did some stuff. We go out for dinner that night. We wake up the next morning, and it was just kind of raining, but then it rained all day hard. The wind, I remember your porch was like blowing in. Kimmy thought the tree was going to come right through the window. Power goes out, but the best part was we were still able to have an awesome night at your neighbor's place who had the generator to go watch Bianca's big historic win. Ate some great food. It was almost like a potluck. You know what? It's almost like you see these people come together and support each other. There's a lot of that. And then, helping you clean up the next day, watching your neighbor attack like 3 different trees with his chainsaw, and you and I lugged the playhouse out of the lake there, and that was just we just showcased our man strength to Kimmy. I think she was more impressed that you and I were able to do that than anybody else.
Yeah, to lug a kids play cube out of a lake with a rope.
She also thought we were crazy when we did that, but
that's
whatever.
True. Yeah. Funny story about that tree that you witnessed kind of blowing into our kitchen window. We finally got that same neighbor that took the trees down in the front yard that were blown over by the hurricane to take that tree down just last weekend. And I don't know if you witnessed what happened when you were here. The trees didn't really fall in the direction that he was hoping. And it also didn't this time, except this tree was much closer to my house. So I was on the other end of the tree with a rope out on the just on the edge of the lake, which was ice and quite thick ice, even just a week ago. And when it started to fall into my house, I started pulling on it with the rope, fell off the side of of my backyard onto a rock, smoked my knee, and have been dealing with some knee issues ever since then. And it also wrecked my east trough, and I was up on the on the roof the other day, did a quick like mini patch, and then now I know what I need to do to actually patch it up. So it's nice to have neighbors with big powerful toys. And I appreciate the help for sure, because that's probably a couple $1,000s worth of work he's done for me in the last little bit. But don't always trust everyone, because your house might get a tree inside of it.
And hopefully he's not watching.
I hope he's not watching yet. Exactly. Okay, so again, just like the last few nights, now this is night 5. So you're my kind of my cleanup hitter. You're the anchor leg of this little journey of going through sitting on couches, which I am again sitting on a couch, the same couch that I've sat on for the last 4 days. And kind of came about because we, you, me, the other guys, we kind of talk all the time, and thought it'd be fun to bring some of our conversations to whoever else was interested, whether it's 12 people or 50. So we kind of wanted to get going. So I have some questions to kind of keep us on the straight and narrow as much as we can. Starting off with your background in terms of where you're from, where you grew up, where you went to high school, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, my whole background. So I'm from Mississauga. My parents actually still live in the house I grew up, which is about 15 minutes from where I live now, which is in Oakville. I went to high school. I went to Lauren Park High School, which I was fortunate enough. It was like right down the street from my parents' house. So one of those where, classes started at 8:20 and I could get up at 8 and still make it to class on time. So, really nice that way. I've never had to ride the school bus to school or anything like that. I went to Queens for my undergrad. Played football there, tried to play football, got hurt, battled some pretty career injuries with blowing up my knee in my second year and then blowing up my shoulder my third year. And that's really what kind of led me to training. I had to keep figuring out ways to try to kind of Band-Aid myself back together as best we could. In early 2000s, there weren't strength coaches or anything like that. Like, we know that the universities have set up now. But went to Queens, it was a dual degree program at that time, which was one of the reasons why I went there. Is a Bachelor of Physical Health Education, and you could either get a BA or a BSci, just depending on kind of what electives you chose. So I did a BA in health, and around my second year, there was a strength and conditioning course, Theory and Methodology of Strength and Conditioning, taught by Mel Torcolaci, who was the track coach at the time, and it was about training. She wrote our football team programs, but this was my first foray into Tour Bompa and periodization and what that is. But it was a guest speaker came in, Anthony Slater, who was an upper year student who had just come back from Athletes Performance. So we're talking like this is 2001, 2002. Strength and conditioning wasn't really starting. The internet wasn't really around very much. So he came back and told us about this internship experience, and I was hooked. I thought it was amazing. It's the first time I'd heard that you could make money training professional athletes and doing that. And just like anybody, that's kind of the goal that I had, is I wanted to train elite level people. So really started to kind of get into training and reading about training and cobbling together, journal articles or the NSCA or whatever I could. And then because between my third and my fourth year of university, as a student, I wanted to go to Athletes Performance because that's where Anthony was. Dropped the ball, missed the internship application. It's not, no one's as connected as they are now. It's just one of those things that I had missed. And so I kind of thought I was screwed, but found an internship at a football training facility down in Florida, in Boca Raton. And so I ended up going there, which was amazing. Chris Carter, I don't know if you remember Chris Carter. He was the legendary Minnesota Vikings wide receiver.
Okay, yeah.
Does a lot of the NFL game day stuff now. I think on Fox maybe. Anyway, it was his facility, just a little tiny place, but they took an intern. So I went down there for 12 weeks, had an amazing experience, learned a ton, how to deal with things. And they actually ended up offering me a position when I graduated. I had to go back for my 4th year. And I didn't want to, move to Florida or live in the States, but I remember the internship coordinator, she basically said, well, you're a football player. If you want to stay in Canada, you should learn hockey. And that's something that had kind of stuck and resonated with me. I played hockey growing up, but I wasn't necessarily a hockey guy, so to speak, like I am now. And so when I came back, graduated, got my CSCS back then, you could challenge the CSCS exam before you graduated. Now you have to have an undergraduate degree. And then moved to Ottawa to work at a place called the Athletic Conditioning Center with Lauren Goldenberg, who at the time, was kind of one of those first kind of strength coaches in professional hockey, along with Mike Boyle. And so he had an athlete-only training gym in Ottawa. And so that was kind of my first career was, working with Matt Price. He was a strength coach there at the time as well. So Matt and I, worked a lot with the hockey guys and the hockey players that were there. And then Matt moved out to Calgary to do his master's. I know that's where kind of you and him pick up, but
yeah.
I had stayed there for a few years, ended up getting to know a lot of people, in the strength and conditioning community in Ottawa, and it's not big. And so got hired by the Ottawa Senators in 2008 to be their conditioning coach. Their previous guy was moving up to be the director of player development. And, I'd worked with some of their players at our gym and had known him for a while. And so, they hired me. Unfortunately, we weren't very good. I was pretty young and inexperienced, and they made some staff changes at the end of the year, which, hey, that's the world of pro sport. But I ended up getting a job. So through that, before I worked with the Senators, we were training one of the national women's team players who lived in Ottawa, and we were one of the training sites or training facilities that the Canadian Sports Institutes at the time honored. So I was training her, Katie Weatherston, and kind of my name got back to Pooley who was Hockey Canada's strength coach at the time. And they invited me out to one of their weekend events. I met Steve Lidstone. Steve and I obviously hit it off. And when I left the Senators, I stayed in touch with Steve, and he at that time was leaving York to go to Mac. And it kind of let me in that they were going to be hiring somebody there. There was somebody in between Steve and myself, but he only lasted a year. So I ended up getting the head strength job at York University. Now, again, this is 10 years ago, 2009. So very different landscape in the OUA at this point. I think myself and Steve were, Rodney Wilson at Queens were probably the only 3 full-time strength coaches at the time. Now, you look at, I think, every university has 1, if not 2 or 3 people running the strength and conditioning, which is amazing to see that growth. But Steve's the original OG, and up until last year when I left York, him and I were kind of like the long-standing grizzled vets of the OUA landscape. But I really made sure while I was at York, I did some schooling and kind of bettered myself. So while I was at York, I finished my master's and as of last November completed my PhD. So I got
some schooling.
I got like 9 years of school for free from York. It was amazing, and something I would always tell any of the new hires at any of the universities was to make sure you use that tuition waiver for free education. I don't care if you already have a master's, start a PhD, or if you don't have a master's, start a master's. If you don't want to do a PhD, start another master's, because the value of free education is it's invaluable. So that's something I always recommended to people. But during that time, I also continued my work with Hockey Canada. was fortunate enough to take over from Ryan Van Asten when he went to LA in 2010. So from 2010 to 2014, ran everything with the women's program from U18s to their national women's team. Was super fortunate to be with the team that won a gold medal in Sochi, which I think I have. I'm sitting in my office, so I have our 2014 Olympic team on the wall there. And from that, after 2014, I started to do some more stuff with the men, and really kind of started to pull away from my day-to-day training environment with the women. Women's program, more of kind of overseeing the direction. They call it the IST lead position. So kind of overseeing the camps, overseeing the direction, but not doing the daily stuff, because on the men's side, I started doing more for them, and fortunate now, I've done the last 6 World Juniors with that team, with that under 20 team. So it's 6 years. That also means 6 Christmases missed. But really nice to have 3 gold medals in those 6 years. So really fortunate to have grown a lot of that on the men's side as well. Strength and conditioning wasn't a position they always had, but now I feel fortunate that my official title with them is manager of sport performance, meaning I oversee the U18, the U20s, which is what I work with, and then provide direction to the under 17s as well. So just enough to keep me busy. And then I guess lastly, it's my job now as an applied sports scientist with Catapult. So
yeah, and we'll get more into the Catapult stuff later. As Chris Young was saying, do you mean you're the director of sports science or the beep test master?
Beep test master, because back in the day, it was only really me for a lot of those camps. Now we try to bring the herd to help and support our
small
athletes.
army.
I remember one of our camps in Rockland. It would have been August camp in 2011, I think. I was the development team lead, and Chris Chapman was our U18 team lead, and it was just him and I. So him and I ran all of the testing for everything. Now, you've been to a lot of our testing camps, so you know when you have 80 athletes, so we had 2 U18 teams, 2 development teams, and 2 strength coaches. It was a lot. So we and the beep test in the back parking lot of the rink. I think I must have been out there in the sun for like 4+ hours, and Chris was Chris's first camp. He would have been the video coach there, so he would have made some pretty wild videos. And I think I was so sunbaked that him and I made some funny videos during that time with the high socks and the sun hat and the Australian hat. But
that's the look now, man. You can't see a strength coach from the southern or midwestern United States that's not wearing one of those hats with the high socks and shorts out on the field, eh?
Just ahead of the curve. We were just ahead of the curve there. But you know what it is? Like one of the things I'm super proud of is how we've been able to grow that women's program, and they've put a lot of resources and a lot of time, and we've had a lot of strength coaches pass through that program for us. But back in the day, we ran some lean camps there. That was in Rockland, Ontario, just east of Ottawa.
Yeah, so I'm going to test your memory really quick. Do you remember, and it probably would have been the first time that we would have met, would have been at one of those camps. Do you remember the first camp I was at?
It was probably May camp 2011 we would have been at Mac then, I think, right? That was because the year after we were at York.
That's right, man. That's a good memory. Yeah, I met a lot of people. So, the reason I was there, I think, is because I had just moved to Halifax. And Ryan Van Asten was still the program lead, or he was kind of like, you and him were exchanging at that time, basically, right? Because Van Asten was there. And I think, they asked, is there anybody out in Halifax that can do stuff? And Ryan's like, oh, Scott just moved from Calgary, so I'm sure he could do it. So anyway, you guys called me in, and, got to meet lots and lots of awesome people. Like I met you there. I met Jeremy Steinbeck, who now works with us at the Canadian Sports Center Atlantic in Halifax. I would have met Steve Lidstone. That would have been the first time I would have met Steve. So, I always I wish I could send more people to those types of camps now, because the camps are a little different now. It's a bit, there's a little bit of a less of an emphasis on that maybe at the national level. But I always considered it as like strength coach boot camp, basically. You go there for 4 or 5 days, you run 100 warm-ups, or at least it feels that way. You see a bunch of different, you see 100 people and you see different presentations of different things. You know, you run strength sessions, you run ESD sessions, you talk to each other about, you know, training and about philosophies and all that sort of stuff. And I thought that was some of the best professional development that I've ever had in my life. And I don't think I'd be anywhere near where I am today with, you know, my training philosophy or even my connections and my circle of people without, you know, getting the chance to go to those camps. So it's been awesome.
Yeah, that was, I got to give a credit to Steve Lidstone with that. One of his ideas that's almost turned into a little bit of a legacy is he always wanted to bring young coaches to those and give coaches opportunities at the national team camps as they've been up and coming. And that's one of the things we stuck with. You know, Steve, it's been a while since, you know, Steve's always one of the guys we always bring back, but we kept that. And my philosophy as kind of the person who kind of headed that up over the last few years was, you know, we need to give opportunities like that in Canada because they don't have it anywhere else. And you needed to earn your stripes to get there. You know, I would have emails all the time from people who wanted to come to Hockey Canada camps, but we needed a way to have almost like 2 and 3 people kind of check you off before you could come. But that's just because we wanted to keep it high quality, but we also wanted to continue to give back to the Canadian strength and conditioning world. So, you know, we would put it out to people we knew to nominate somebody. We would start to use, over the last few years, we started to use the OUA network that myself and Steve and Bennett Mack and Colin at Queens and give people that opportunity to kind of put some of their students in those roles. You know, Kiri Langford, who works with you with Softball Canada at CSIO, she was a student of mine at York who came to one of our camps as a student person. And it's very rare to get a collection of, you know, I think one year we got up to almost like 25, 30 plus strength coaches there. But you don't have that opportunity as an undergraduate student who wants to get into coaching or strength and conditioning, or a young person who just graduated, to have the opportunity to fully immerse with high-level athletes, you know, our under 18 development age females, along with strength coaches who have been doing it for a range of 6 months to 10 plus years. I always got a lot from it. The nice part is we would use that as a feeder system to work with our women's teams and our women's program. So we kind of always tried to go from, okay, May camp was kind of like your job interview, your on-site job interview. And then we would pick people from that camp to work at our August camp. And that's one thing, you know, we always learned from Mel Davidson and Julie Healy way back in the day was, you know, these people, you know, let them show you how much they care about Hockey Canada and working with our athletes, and then we'll reward that and give them opportunities as well. So, you know, you got to work with 1 or 2 of our teams in competition, but you did a few August camps before that, and you kind of cut your teeth at August camp where, you know, it's not that intense, because when you work with Hockey Canada and you get to go to one of our world championships or something, it's intense, right? We have a gold medal or bust attitude. But May camp, it's about strength and conditioning and coaching. At August camp, the focus shifts to that on ice evaluation, but we still play a role because we still need to reinforce the positive habits that we tried to teach the girls throughout the summer. So we could use that as a feeder system. And, you know, one of the unfortunate things this year because of the virus is we were going to have another May camp. Bring in a bunch of athletes, bring in a bunch of coaches, but, you know, we unfortunately had to cancel that. So, you know, we're kind of resetting a little bit of our feeder system for that August camp because we haven't had May camps for a while. So, you know, one of my mandates for this one was to kind of audition some new blood. So we would have some strong, powerful coaches to come in. But, you know, you can think back of a bunch of the coaches, you know, that you and I know. A lot of them we've met and kind of, you know, had fun at either in the unofficial room at events or camps or whatever. But, you know, that's one of the things that I'm certainly proud of is you know, the impact that, you know, I know those camps have had on people and hopefully kickstarted some of their careers.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned Kiri Langford, and you know, when I kind of took over as the national lead for Softball Canada, and we were trying to build like a bit of a hub system around the country, it was fairly easy for me to kind of pinpoint people in, you know, Ontario and southern BC, or sorry, the Lower Mainland of BC, um, because of these Hockey Canada experiences, and you know, having met Kiri and seen her in a high stress, you know, kind of long hours, and how she responded to that sort of stuff with athletes, it gave me that kind of confidence that she'd be able to do something like that with our program. So yeah, without those experiences, for those other people and also for myself, you know, I'd be in a totally different place. So it's been awesome.
Well,
100%.
feel free to chip off a piece of that Softball Canada gold medal and send it to me after Tokyo 2021.
2021, it's coming, man, for sure. Okay, let's shift gears a little bit
Sure.
to kind of get back to some of those personal type questions. So one of the questions that I've been asking everybody, and it's more because, you know, it's interesting to me because I kind of had this group of friends when I was younger who, you know, we hung out every day. We met up at actually my house, because my house was the closest to, or my parents' to our junior high. We kind of had breakfast, watched a cartoon or something like that, and then did our hair and then walked to school. So we were best friends. We did that every day for multiple years. And you know, we've led completely different lives. You know, I finished. I went to university. I did a master's degree. I moved away. I've worked with national teams and that kind of stuff. Some of those guys went to more sort of vocational schools and have become journeymen, which is awesome. So they've gone kind of different direction, but also, you know, been successful. And then a couple people, or one of the guys, didn't finish junior high, and another one didn't finish high school. So, you know, there's really varied experiences from that kind of small group of people that, you know, were together under the same circumstances ish at the same time. So I'm curious to know, you know, not anything specific or anything like that, but you know, where some of your friends from junior high or high school have ended up.
Well, most of them, I told my boys to tune in, so I see a few of them have joined. I'm fortunate that I'm still very much friends with the guys that I went to grade school with and have grown up with. You know, there's about 4 or 5 of us that I think my wife thinks I talk to them more times a day than I talk to her, in our group chats or group FaceTimes or whatever. So I'm very fortunate that I have a very close group of friends that I've grown up with from like kindergarten to, you know, another guy came in grade 2, and then another guy came in grade 9. So there's a big group of us that have stayed friends. Like when I'm talking about, we talk, I think my phone buzzes every hour multiple times because we're all chatting about something. So very fortunate to have a group like that. We all live kind of within 15 to 20 minutes of each other. Another one lives in Oakville. Another guy lives in Burlington. Another guy lives in Mississauga. Another guy lives just east end of Toronto or west end of Toronto. So, you know, we're still very much a close unit. Our kids, you know, grew up together, which is amazing to see. That, you know, they all kind of went into university. A lot of them are in business. You know, what's funny though, Scott, is I've been touting this work from home since I started, you know, 18 months ago. But they've always been jealous that I get to go to work in sweatpants, even as a strength coach, in sweatpants and jeans. And so now over the last 2 weeks, when they've been able to do that, I've been telling them it's like secret sauce, because everyone is getting in on the strength coach secret of wearing gray sweatpants and shorts to work. Now everybody's doing that. But
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, I've been able to stay really close friends with them. I've got a really close group of friends from Queens, my undergrad, the you know, 6 or 7 guys that I lived with. What's really neat about that group is one weekend a year we go camping. And one guy right now lives in the Yukon. One guy lives in Ottawa. One guy lives in Oakville. One guy lives in Toronto. One guy lives in Calgary. We still meet up. This will be our 15th or 16th year doing it, going on a camping trip. And so we just make sure, you know, we prioritize that we get together for a year, one weekend a year, and go camping for 4 days or so. So fortunate that I always joke with my wife I don't like making new friends, because I have all those other ones.
Yeah.
But no, I've been very, very fortunate to be able to keep a close circle.
Nice. I know you mentioned your kids getting to grow up with some of the kids of your friends. Um, obviously this is a challenging time in terms of having the kids at home, and everybody else is at home. What's life like during these times? Having a young family and all that sort of stuff. You actually also mentioned, you can also tie this into the story maybe a little bit. You mentioned missing 6 Christmases. I think your oldest is 7 or 8, if I'm not. Yeah, so
He's
seven.
7.
So has he
Yeah.
seen any Christmases with Dad yet?
We had 2 together.
Okay.
And then my youngest, I've had 0 to get with him.
Yeah.
But the nice part is, so I'll go back to I'll answer the first question first.
Yeah.
So what's life like here? Well, fortunately, my wife is a teacher, so she's got a very structured day for our guys. So 7 and 5, they're pretty rambunctious. They get along great together, but it's just like you learn when a kid's a baby. Kids thrive off schedules is what we always found. So even when they're older now, they thrive off a schedule. Now it's heading into the weekend, we'll relax that schedule a little bit, but whether it's learning in the morning, they have 2 outdoor sessions, they have a free play, they've got a quiet time. It just helps, especially our 5-year-old, so he knows what's happening throughout the rest of the day, and he just doesn't get bored that way. He'll pop into my office and I'll be like, "Oh, what are you supposed to be doing right now?" He's like, "Free play," and I'll be like, "Okay, away you go." So certainly a plus of having your wife as a kindergarten teacher, and one of the other people that's off right now. I guess everybody's off, but they were one of the first jobs to get shut down. So that helps. As for the question about Christmas, the World Juniors, it was always a goal of mine. It's like the pinnacle, especially when I started working with Hockey Canada and after the Olympics. And as I said, the men didn't have, strength and conditioning at that time, but they've allowed me to really grow that. And it's funny, everyone watches the World Juniors, but they don't realize the sacrifice people make. I remember talking to somebody that in our neighborhood, I'd only done a few, and they were like, "Oh, what do you do?" I do this and that. And they're like, "Wow, you work with the World Juniors every year." I remember I always go over to my parents' house. My dad and I sit down and watch that on Boxing Day. And then it kind of clued, and they were like, "Wait, that means you're away at Christmas?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's what you do." But Hockey Canada does an amazing job of taking care of us. And, I wouldn't do it if I couldn't be supportive of my wife and what she does and holds down the fort back home when I'm gone. But we do it. We still celebrate Christmas. We just do it before I leave. And so our kids, they're going to grow up spoiled because they get 3 or 4 Christmases, between, my parents, so their grandparents' Christmas, and then our family Christmas with my wife and the boys, then the real Christmas, and then Christmas with the in-laws. They're getting certainly spoiled.
Nice. Okay, so you're one of these people that have kind of made the transition from primarily the amateur sport world more into the private sector. Now working with Catapult. So can you tell us a little bit about that transition and what the day-to-day life is like working at a company like Catapult?
Sure. So I left the university in August of 2018 and joined Catapult, which is a wearable technology company, for those of you that don't know what it is. And they approached me they were looking to hire some domain expertise around ice hockey. So they brought me in at that time to kind of work with and oversee their ice hockey clients. So really my job is to work with our professional and NCAA hockey clients. I also have a piece of my work is kind of research and development in the sport of ice hockey with our wearables, which is really cool. It allows me to tie in a lot of that work I did for my PhD, which was wearables in ice hockey. But the day-to-day job, essentially my job is to make sure our clients, our hockey teams, we have 31 different teams, hockey teams in North America, know and understand and are best using the technology to help them. One of the key tenets is service, which I really like. Hockey Canada is a client, so part of my job over the last few years was to use the system with Hockey Canada. And one of the things I always like about Catapult is they are very much customer service friendly. So always at help, could always call, pick up the phone, talk to one of their sports scientists, talk to one of their tech people. You were never by yourself. And so so that's my job now, is to make sure our clients are getting the best and the most out of their units. Each client is different. You got some great users, like some of our teams have been using it for 4 or 5 years now at the pro level, and some of them are just beginning. So you got to spend your time with each of them accordingly, teaching them how to use it, what to look for. I still use it with Hockey Canada, so I still can get my hands on our data and try different things. What am I looking at? Kind of how can we best understand the physical demands of the sport through wearable technology, which is really cool. So that's kind of what I do on a day-to-day basis. I go out and I visit our clients, spend a few days here and there with them, behind the scenes, working with them, just trying to figure out different ways that we can answer the questions our performance coaches have.
Very nice. So, Adam, you'll be happy to know that while you were talking there, we cracked the 20-person viewing at one time
Oh, yeah.
barrier, which we talked about earlier.
Cheers for that.
Cheers, buddy. No offense to the previous guests, Selby, Dana, Corey, or Ryan, but you are now the winner.
There we go. That's my goal.
Yeah, exactly. So since we have a few people showing up here now, now's a good time. If you want to post any questions for Adam or for me, go ahead and do that while I ask my kind of final question on my list, which is if you had to pick a favorite drink. So, if you're looking at beer, whiskey, gin, wine, whatever that is, what's your kind of go-to and why?
What's my go-to? Well, it's
Bud Light.
tough because I was never a beer drinker.
Mm-hmm.
So until like second or third year university, I was always that guy. But now, it's different. I'm one of those guys that I can drink according to the occasion. So tonight I had a beer. When we were over in Czech Republic this year, basically the only thing you could have is beer, which was
cheaper than the water,
cheaper than water. But I do like, the odd like whiskey sour, especially if we're staying in a nice hotel or something like that. The ones that make it with the egg yolk, stuff like that. But really the one thing you learn when you're in hockey is you'll drink whatever's cold. So, I'm not like Selby, who's a wine guy or anything like that. I'll drink whatever's cold, and as long as I'm drinking it with somebody else.
Nice. Yeah, exactly. You and I have, shared a few long data entry sessions after some testing where we've crushed a couple of, those sort of cheap beer, whatever was cold. And that was some fun times.
How crazy is it that you and I were basically making our own AMS in Excel because that technology wasn't really existing or was way too expensive for people to buy?
Like almost 10 years ago.
Almost 10 years ago, with all those pivot tables and spider charts. And like, I still have all that stuff on our hard drives and stuff. It's like, I go back and I'm like, wow, we were doing these things that you can click a button on your AMS and it will do for you. That you and I were trying to work on, long nights up till 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, trying to get 80 to 90 plus athletes in so we could turn around their testing results for them the next day. Yeah,
that was fun times, man. That's definitely how we bonded. So I wouldn't give up those times for anything. We got a couple questions here. We got one from Jay Malhado, who we would have met. I would have met through you. But Jay asks the most eye-opening thing you've seen from GPS in hockey that you didn't expect to see.
Yeah, so just to clarify, most of the work in hockey is done just through using inertial sensors, so using the accelerometer, gyroscope, and magnetometer. You can get it inside if you put a local positioning system or LPS system in. Clear Skies is what it's called. I have a paper out there with Clear Sky in junior hockey that I wrote with Corey, which is pretty good. But to answer Jay's question directly, the biggest one was the lack of intensity of practice as it related to game demands. And really, that was one of the reasons why I kind of started to want to get technology like Catapult before I even knew Catapult existed, because you spend all this time in rinks and you watch all these practices, and really what I was watching was there was no change or daily fluctuation of volume or intensity. Coaches would go out there, and if we had a 2-hour block of ice, they would coach that 2-hour block of ice. Well, you and I both know, as a strength coach, athletes respond well to, undulating periodization or just changing the stimulus day to day.
Variation, yeah.
You'd have conversations with coaches, and they would be like, well, I'm doing this because we need to do this. And I'd always be like, well, I think there's like a better way to do it. So until we could actually, it's like what Matt Jordan always says, if you can measure what matters, it change what matters, or whatever his saying is. Like, I couldn't measure it. So I couldn't stand on two legs when I was talking to coaches or anybody, because it was my interpretation versus their interpretation. In North America, and certainly in the sport of hockey, the head coach is always going to have the final say. So once we could actually measure and show game demands and practice demands, we needed to figure out a way to increase the intensity of practice. And, I see you asking Dan, and Dan was one of those coaches I talked to a lot at York about, and we actually got the units on his girls at York. Yeah. And I could use his York Lions women's hockey team, who had an amazing year this year, as kind of a little bit of a test case. And Dan and I would spend hours in either my office or his office talking about planning, and we started, and Dan started using RPE almost before RPE was a thing. Which is awesome because it's such a big thing now. But really just so long story short, to answer Jay's question, was we needed to do a better job of training intensity in practice. And that's one of the things whenever I meet with our junior coaches in the summer, I always get them to start thinking is, how can we sharpen the spear of practice to better prepare our teams for games?
Yeah, nice. And, Dan just kind of followed up on that. And for those of you who don't know, Dan was, for a time, he was the national women's team coach. He was York University's coach. And apologies, I'm not 100% sure what Dan's up to now.
Still at York. His team just lost in the OUA final, which, Dan, I know you're listening. So I was watching the game, and that was a terrible call by the ref with 1.5 minutes left to tie the game up. But kudos to you and your program. So he's still at York. Unfortunately, it was their first trip to nationals, and unfortunately got canceled. They're out in PI, actually.
Yeah, exactly. And so Dan mentioned that it changed how we coached practice. So that's obviously an amazing thing to hear as feedback from a coach as an applied sports scientist. Like, that's obviously what you're trying to do, not necessarily, force people to change, but show them what might be interesting to them, or show them what might matter, and hope that it has an impact.
Yeah, hockey's it's a sport that is slow to adapt, but there are coaches out there that are willing to change, and it just makes sense that they're going to reap the rewards.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a question from a higher level tennis has been asking, or has been having a decent number of comments here recently. First, he asked, how far do we go back? I can answer that one. Well, I can answer that one pretty quick. We answered it earlier on in the show.
May Camp 2011.
May Camp 2011, yeah. So May 2011 we first met. After that, Chambers, who I just met last night. I think he's one of the interns with the Calgary Flames under Ryan Van Asten and Alan Selby. He asked, do you think Catapult GPS will be eventually used during live play in the NHL?
So they certainly have their own live tracking system that they're bringing in next year, which is league run and league owned. So, we'll be able to look at some of that data, and it'll be interesting to see how it matches up to some of our stuff. So to answer your question directly, the NHL is bound by so many layers and rules within the NHLPA that I think it'll depend on how this tracking system goes, where with almost half of the league with our wearable technology already. So I think the league will grow. This will only help grow the importance of understanding what is happening. It's two different technologies that they're using and that we use, so it won't be something that you can kind of compare apples to apples, but apples to oranges is still a good thing to sometimes compare to in our world. So what it's going to do is it's going to lower the stigma of wearables in the sport. And I think, you'll see that the better teams or the smarter teams latch on to a technology to monitor practice now that they have this league-wide GPS deal. So do I think it'll open Catapult specifically? I don't know, but I think from a wearable technology standpoint, it'll shine the spotlight on it more so.
Speaking of apples to oranges, or maybe apples to kiwi fruit, or whatever sort of tree fruits they eat in Australia. Higher level tennis also asked about basically how does it work. So, a really quick overview of what the units are, and then, some of the applications in other sports, again, probably pretty quickly.
So I would imagine this person works in tennis. So it can be used in tennis. We actually just signed a deal with the WTA, I believe. And so essentially what Catapult is, Catapult started as a GPS company. So it's a GPS unit that has an accelerometer, a magnetometer, and a gyroscope. So all of those tell us basically force direction and body position of the athletes during their practice or games or match or whatever. So from that, there's a whole suite of metrics you can get. Obviously, there's your positional ones, so distance, speed at certain distances, heat maps, that sort of thing. But specifically for hockey, we use the inertial sensors, so the accelerometer mainly, to get mechanical workload or mechanical work rate. And so essentially the higher, the more you move at higher intensities, the higher your mechanical workload is. Mechanical workload goes up. So that in a nutshell is what it is. And then essentially what I use it for is I use it to look at volume. So how much work was done. Intensity, how much work did they do at high, medium, or low intensity, and then also asymmetries, because the hockey stride is unique and it's not necessarily close to running. We can look at left-right asymmetries based off the force per stride left and right. So tennis, I know I don't have a lot of work. Obviously, I work with hockey. There's another sports scientist that works with tennis, but we can look at left-right swing rates. We can look at force generated through the torso as they swing. The units are worn on the upper thoracic, so you can get that upper body rotation.
Yeah, in case anyone was weirded out by my reference to kiwi fruit or Australian things, I thought maybe you would go in the direction of the Aussie rules football or rugby, which are some of the huge users of the units, or early adopters.
We're an Australian company, so we started in Australia. We're essentially, not to humble brag, but like the world leader in wearable technology from a worldwide client share, which is great. A lot of the outdoor sports were early adopters. Soccer, Aussie rules football, rugby, those were all the early adopters of the technology because they're outside. It came over to indoor sports around 2015. That's when Hockey Canada jumped on board with them. Over the last 5 years.
Yeah. And on like a really, really micro level in terms of, how much actual distance is being covered, knowing that, it's not necessarily just a GPS unit. I remember back a few years ago when Marcus Stroman was rehabbing from his Tommy John surgery, or no, his ACL surgery, I think. ACL surgery. He used the Catapult units at Duke University during part of his rehab to just track, number and intensity of pitches, which I thought was a neat use and pretty cool.
Yeah, the stuff baseball's so far advanced analytics. So our units record at 100 hertz. So they'll take that 100 hertz data and they can get right down to pitch count, different mechanical deficiencies in pitchers based off what's optimal, what they want to see, and the kind of the rate of change as a pitcher fatigues. It's really, really impressive what they're doing in baseball.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. So anyway, I think it's a great transition that you've been able to have from working with units as part of integrated support team on a national team, and then sort of transitioned into actually working with the units and providing expertise to multiple different groups, sports, schools, all that sort of stuff. So that's been really, really cool. Josh Kraus from Antigonish. Well, he's not from Antigonish, but works in Antigonish at St. FX University. Just ask a quick question. Maybe this will be the last one. Did you notice any significant differences in GPS data from beginning of season versus playoffs?
What's interesting is there's not that much of a difference depending on time of year as there is based off opponent. So everyone thinks, teams in the NHL can't wear it in the playoffs. However, having conversations with some of the people that I know who are no longer with teams, they kind of looked at that. But even when I look at our Hockey Canada data versus our summer camps to round robin to our gold medal games, it's very much dependent on the opponent and the type of game that's played versus taking nights off throughout the year and then ramping the intensity up in games. A lot of the playoff intensity, based off some of the conversations I've had with our pro clients, is crowd anxiety, that sort of thing, versus the actual physical passages of play.
Yeah, I mean, at the international level versus the professional level, the professional level, the teams are relatively even, right? Whereas if you're in the international level and you're even at a world championships, you're going to be playing teams who are at a similar caliber, maybe a little bit better, or potentially a lot worse, especially in a sport like women's ice hockey. So, you kind of see those things as well.
Yeah, like when I look at our women's data, obviously our games against the Americans are the highest. If I threw all of the data up from the, minus overtime from the 2018 Olympic gold medal, which was a super close game, lost in a shootout, any of the world championship gold medal data, and then you put in the rivalry series games, you're not going to see that much difference. It's the same as with our World Juniors data this year. We got absolutely shellacked by the Russians in the round robin game. I think we lost like 6-1, or we got blown out. Our workload in the gold medal game was higher, but that was because we played better. Like, we played harder, we kept intensity up the whole time. So if you can't say it was higher because it was the gold medal game, we just played better, right? We were able to have that intensity up that whole time versus the ebbs and flows. But it was very similar to our first game against the Americans, which we won as well, which was I think we won 7-5 or 6-5 or something like that, which was just both of those were super intense games. So it's more the opponent and what's happening in the game versus, I would say, the time of year.
Yeah, nice. Good answer. I just wanted to say hi to a couple of people that just showed up that are, Hockey Canada type people as well. So Bryce Tully, who's a mental performance coach at the Canadian Sports Center Atlantic, but also has worked with a couple of different age group men's world championship programs. So hey, Bryce. And then also Amy Lee, also from Halifax, who's a physical therapist who's worked with a few of the age group women's programs as well. So hey, guys.
Nice, awesome. I'm super pumped that this has been great, super engaging, and if anyone has any more questions, certainly Scott and I are just probably going to drink beer the rest of the night, so we might as well drink beer together.
Yeah, that's true. We're approaching an hour. Actually, we just hit 1 hour. Every other person that I talked to this week went between 42 and 44 minutes. Just ran, like, not by design, but it just kind of, that's where it finished up. But I kind of thought, you and I might go a little bit deeper into the night. Plus, it's Friday.
Friday. What else are people going to be doing? There's nothing else to do.
Yeah, exactly.
What's interesting, Scott, is so when I used to drive to York, I used to spend, on average, 75 to 90 minutes in the car. And I would call people. I would call you a lot of the time. I would call Corey. And one of the biggest things that I miss now, one of the biggest things I miss and not miss is that drive. I don't miss that drive. I gain almost 3 hours of my day back, but I don't have that time anymore. And I need to make that time. You know, you and I still talk a lot, but not as much as we probably used to.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I need to be better at when the world goes back to normal is making that time to connect with people. Just because, you know, I miss that.